up and show up wherein the uh, the family I think with the schemes like Startup India, more and more awareness is being generated in terms of parents recognizing the that your child wants to go and go do something to for his own sake. So my parents doesn't even know that I'm working for I have my own startup at the moment. All they need, though, all they know is that Sponsify Me is a company that I'm working for. So convincing your parents is one biggest challenge that you face when you started up, and because all they know is that whether your company is Infosys or PwC or KPMG you're working for, and you cannot really tell them that well, you have graduated from IIT Delhi and then you started your own company, which your future is not yet sure. So that's the biggest challenge that we face at the moment. And the other is that when you are in the startup phase, you get to interact with a lot of people, and all sort of people will like to give you some gyan, which you sometimes have to be very careful and cautious of whom you should look up to and whom you should ignore. So when you interact with so many people, you tend to lose your focus, and you just change your business model, change your plans because of the fact that you feel that the person who is saying something is more experienced than you. So I think the biggest challenge of all while you start up is to focus on your gut feel and understand what you want to do and why you started this up in the initial level and keep on going that.
Sure. So my next question would be to Rahul and Dheeraj. Rahul to start with. Rahul, what is the typical, generally it's said ki once a startup crosses 3 years, then the survival rate is very high. So what are the typical challenges between 0 to 3 and do they fade away after 3? So what is your perspective of that?
So in my startup world, we are 1 year old, so we haven't crossed the 3 year bridge yet. But in another startup where I worked for, I survived for 5 years. So I'll try to answer the question with the two experiences together. So firstly, I think 0 to 3 is a different set of problems that you're trying to solve, and somewhat you can guess the Moglix is inspired by a cartoon character Mowgli, which we all saw in our childhood. So startup to us is like growing a child, right? And you're growing as in the 0 to 3 years, you're growing in a set of a mixed hostility, competition, fundraising, hiring people. I think that's the kind of challenges you are encountering. And this is more about 0 to 3 is more about survival, right? Like how do I get up every day and convince people to buy my product or try my service? How do I convince investors who may want to give me capital? How do I convince people to join this particular startup amongst all other options? So I think 0 to 3, you're really trying to solve some of these aspects which are just about fundamental survival. And 3 to plus, I think there are two things that happen once you cross the 3 year bridge. I think one, in the technology world that we are living in, technology changes pretty rapidly. So you see every 2 to 3 years, literally, the landscape of technology in the industry is changing very, very fast. So I think the company is undergoing two types of transition. One is there might be another disruptive technology which might have come in 2 to 3 years from you starting up, which can fundamentally kill your idea. And the second aspect is, if that's not happening, then how do you continue to remain a interesting company for people to work for? And how do you scale that culture 3 year plus? Google was a 15, 17-year-old company, and they completely reinvented themselves and said that we are going to have the super entity because it's very, very difficult to have all the innovations and all the disruptions being done inside the Google bracket, right? So I think as you cross that bridge, that's the biggest challenge. How do you disrupt yourself, and how do you remain relevant for all the people who joined your company in the first place?
Sure. Dheeraj, your perspective on this, please.
Is that hello? Yeah. Just what has changed from '99? This is another point which you raised. I started my career in '99, and that was the first dot-com bubble, and then people saying this is next kind of bubble, or is it the same bubble? So what have changed is that startup is almost becoming an asset class, which wasn't there. So for lots of investors, becoming an asset class. Startup is also becoming a proper career options for people. So I think parents have started recognizing. I mean, it's definitely happening back in UK and US has always been there, but I think back in India as well, I think it's definitely, so that's kind of, from a 99 to 2016, what's the difference? Just back on your question on 0 to 3 year and afterwards. So I think the first couple of years always, for anything you do, from relationships to businesses to any journey, is all about getting it right, getting the fundamental right, getting the team right, business model right, business model keep evolving, it's just keep evolving. It takes time to get it right. It definitely takes time to get traction. So, you're very hungry for traction. So first 3 years a couple of years are difficult. The third year, you kind of really start getting settled. And also kind of depend what sector, what business, what product, what services you are. I mean, there are products and sector, especially on the tech side, as he rightly said, there's so much disruption happening all the time. And you have to keep reinventing. Doesn't matter you're in the third year or 7th year or 10th year. I come from a company which is a classical case of going on the top and coming down as fast as it went on the top. And I spent 7.5 years at Nokia, which was super tech company, had 90% market share in 80 plus country. Never ever a product in this world had that kind of market share at such a large scale. Forgot about reinventing. They were 17-year-old company, and still forgot about to go back to is customer seeing what they really like. I mean, is there any place for disruption or innovation? They never did that, and they went down. So I think it doesn't matter if it's a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year, to keep reinventing. I think I stress back on the same thing. Keep inventing with the right team, which obviously you get it in the first couple of years, but team and the culture get established, and then you leveraging that, getting the right product portfolio, right business model, and then kind of all the way scaling up. But it's not 3-year, 5-year, 2-year. You have to get it right all the time.
So how to really avoid the initial blues, Rana? What do you think? You are into a very, very different sort of a startup. So how do you feel running a startup while you're running it on the one side? So you are connecting people aspirations from a pet-loving perspective, and then you are trying to give them some sort of a products wherein the needs are getting bridged. So what do you see are the pitfalls of running a startup like what you are running, and how really to avoid it?
Yeah, so, like Dheeraj rightly said, and Rahul also, and we have been talking about the challenges and then, how long does it take. So one thing, I feel that what we do at the end of the day, whether it is, DocSpot or whether it is, other startups, is that we try to create value, and there has to be a purpose around that value, right? So, and we need to be very sure that if we are, trying to create value, we have to be very patient. So I feel that, it takes about, 5 to 8 years to build something really valuable, and right from the start, we have to be very sure. What the pitfall is that, when we start the startup, we are always in hurry. We feel that, now I have started up and, I'll win the world overnight. It does not happen like that. It takes a while for the entrepreneur to understand that, it's a real world and not everything works like you want. And you need to do some adjustments. And then probably you should have kind of a more practical sense about it. And then you are in it for a long haul. I mean, it's not like, that you'll do this and, so basically once you're an entrepreneur, right? Whether you go back in corporate, you start working like an entrepreneur always. So it is like, creating values and if you're creating very good values and, something big, then it takes time. And we do not understand that when we start up. So.
Rahul used a very good perspective when he shared that to overcome the initial blues, you need to constantly focus in bringing more disruptions. So Professor Biswal, somebody who leads the innovation pieces, how do you see the importance and role of innovation, disruptions in a startup which is scaling up?
Basically, what we have seen, these are the people who have already done a startup, but where we work mostly is sort of motivating students to begin somewhere. My own perspective is that all of them get very excited when they see success stories, whether it is Steve Jobs or whether it's Bill Gates. it excites them that you can probably come up with an idea which makes quick money. Or looking at people, they think that you can find a solution which will give very quickly a lot of money. Therefore, not doing a job is probably a good idea, and I think that's not quite correct. I think that all of them, if you have to be an innovator, then you have a technology skill set which you are leveraging to make a product which will be sold. There will be customer. So therefore, you have to have passion, and the passion will take you towards an entrepreneurship and business. But then you need to do a lot of research, which I find most of my students do not do. They get an idea, they think that, okay, he has done a website for selling houses, or someone else has done something else, therefore I can sell medicines, or I can make a sports app, and this will sell. This normally I have found has not worked. Second thing is that since they don't do much of research, taking a technology to a product, but then you cannot scale up, because by the time you take the product, there are n number of other people also nearly having the same product, and you don't get any investment. That's what I have seen over the years.
So, Amit, is there a toolkit which enables you to transform your startup to a further scale-up business model?
Yeah, so basically, there are a lot of points marked out by everyone on the panel. I basically, we run our company on basically 3 principles: why, what, and how mechanism, as pointed out by Simon Sinek, which is the golden circle. So ideally, when you see brands like Apple, which sort of you always appreciate from a design standpoint, from a creativity, innovation standpoint. These, and likewise different brands. These are the brands who focus on the core values, on the belief system of the company, of the organization. So I think the first and foremost step to build up any product or any innovation is you sort out the why. What is your belief system? And once you know why you're doing what you're doing, then sort of making things happen becomes easier. Then you go on to the next steps, what and how. So I think that is one gap generally that is building up, like Professor Bibu pointed out, that people are just, sort of just copying maybe. So that the whole journey of an entrepreneur is basically about, being very passionate about things. And that passion can only come up when really, you feel, a real part of it as a whole vision, mission, and basic value belief system.
So Rahul, will you like to add something what Amit just said in terms of how culture and value mission systems is so much important in terms of scaling your organization up? So is there something which is more relevant to this, or of course these are the true instance of entrepreneur while he's scaling up, but are there any more, I would say, perspectives which needs to get added while you're scaling up your business?
So I think for us from get-go, the culture was very, very important aspect. While mostly many startup gurus would talk about just 0 to 3, just focus on business model and all other things. But we thought it's very, very important to invest in bringing the right set of people on board, because a company undergoes transitions, company has to continuously navigate ambiguity, company has to continuously sell its new product or service, and you need a different type of mindset which can handle that ambiguity. A person who may be fit and might do very, very well in a corporate environment might actually fail in a startup, because if he can't handle the ambiguity, if he has to be told what needs to be done, he may or may not be the right person for a startup. So I think the culture remains integral, I think, and if an entrepreneur focuses on it, gets the right people in, you probably survive much longer and are able to reinvent yourself much, much faster, versus getting the wrong hires in place and then potentially dealing with HR issues all the time. So thankfully we haven't had those because we truly believe hire slow, fire fast. So we fire people who are not fit for the culture very, very fast as well.
Fantastic. I would say if I have to, of course, I'm taking a liberty, despite being a moderator, to spell some of my own thoughts in terms of this. I believe to make a startup scale up, you need to do 2 things. Passion, determination. Courage is automatically in you because you have become an entrepreneur. These 2 things are the most important things. I meet number of entrepreneurs in various sessions, and generally what I've seen is that people at those startups which got built over a period of time and focused when they started to make money, they were the ones which fizzled it out prior to 3 years, because the focus was money. The focus was not the belief. And startups which went through the entire horizon were the one which had passion in them, backing them up in what they were doing. I think passion and determination are the two core ingredients of any successful startup. For the young crowd over here, students, people from colleges, I would say choose wisely while you think of starting a ecosystem of a startup, or even when you are joining as a in a startup. What is the beliefs and the motives of the founders over there for what they are into? Because that would help you determine, are they in for short haul or long haul, as very beautifully explained over here. So sorry?
I would like to add.
Yeah, please.
So, just to take the analogy of Mr. Anil of the Everest, right? So, as founders, you should always sell the vision, right? You should sell that we have to conquer Everest. Don't sell the path, because the path will change. As you're going up the Everest, startups will change paths, will adapt, will pivot, will do so many things. So if you get employees on board or team members on board, by defining a path, and they are joining you because of that path, then they're not the right guys for you, because they need to adapt with you along with the whole journey to conquer the Everest.
So there used to be a MasterCard ad, which Sandeep rightly said it. So basically, path can be bought, but vision is priceless. So that is how we can summarize it. That at what he rightly said is that it is completely priceless. Nobody can buy that vision. That's why so much funds and everything gets into startups.
Can I just give an example on that? So there's a company called Shipsy. It's such a classical, such an amazing case, and I want to bring it again and again. This company, I founded the founders in a metro train. They were some 7-8 months back. They were going from one place to another. I spotted them. They were wearing a Shipsy t-shirt. I met them next day. I was amazed to find the kind of, as you rightly said, the passion, the vision they had of changing, building a modern courier company. They had technology. So all these guys are IIT, Delhi, Madras, ex-Google, ex-Samsung. They all come from a tech background. They had a vision to build up a robust tech platform for courier companies. And while they were doing that, they didn't find any customers, so they started doing themselves the courier. They started picking up packages and sending other, and they failed in doing that. But their passion and their belief on building that was still there, and they kind of transformed from a courier C2C company to a big data company, because these guys just believe that they have to build a platform around that big data. The largest courier network company of India has picked up 20% stake in that company. From almost a failed startup internally to become a darling of one of the top courier company in India, providing technology, supporting 90 lakh transactions quarterly. Amazing case, only because these guys had passion to build up what they wanted to build up. Their vision is very, very clear. And you won't be surprised, this will be one of the big company in the near future.
Fantastic. One interesting fact is, I don't hear generally that new enterprises are getting created in India or the world. They are all new startups. So, Sandeep, my question to you is, when does a startup become an enterprise? Does it ever become an enterprise?
So, very difficult question to answer. You put me in a spot. So look, I think, according to me, I think everybody will have their own view. A startup, by definition, to me is people who have come together to search for solving a business problem, which will eventually become scalable, right? I think scale is very important. Sorry, when you're doing a startup journey, because two guys can actually come together, form a services company, and they can be just two people for 7-10 years, but they don't have any vision to scale up, right? They don't have any vision to replicate this across 10 countries, right? So, but if they have the vision to replicate this across 10 countries, then they are going from the journey of becoming a startup, maybe for the first few years, to become an enterprise company. I think as Rahul also mentioned about Google, right? A great example. So while Google per se is an enterprise business now because of their scale and the org structure, the complexity of the business, but now they've taken some of the businesses out, which is under Alphabet, because they are fundamentally trying to find a solution to a problem, which could be automated cars, which could be finding sort of, there's some startups who are trying to find life on Mars. So they are trying to solve problems which are not already solved, and they've just come together and finding a repeatable and a scalable business, which sort of becomes big. I think from a DNA perspective, startup culture can be incorporated within enterprises, where enterprises can set up different divisions, can set up different wings, who are working to solve new problems and creating smaller teams together. I think by definition, startup carry a certain DNA, which I think all of us who've been part of startups love, because you adapt